Hello and welcome to Countdown to Power with me, Graeme Pryce. I'm going to have to be very careful about my language in this video. I mean, I'm not usually that careful, but the C word isn't one that I'm particularly personally fond of, despite how fitting it might be. We're going to have a little talk about Jeremy Hunt. The thing is, I don't want to accidentally mispronounce his name. When I do decide to call him a cunt, a deceitful, arrogant cunt, for example, I want it to be deliberately. The pompous, buffoonish liar Jeremy Cunt became the MP for South West Surrey in 2005. He was privately educated at Charterhouse School, of course, and he was the head boy. I'm not sure if that meant he was the most trusted pupil or he was the best at giving head, but anyway, he did quite well and he went on to university. He was at university with Ballbag Johnson and David Cameron, and he was the richest member of Theresa May's cabinet. That sounds quite impressive until you realise that he's now the Chancellor under the richest Prime Minister in history. Then it all just starts to sound a little bit fishy. Maybe a little bit smell of caviar, maybe. But we're all in it together though, so, it's fine. Anyway, after discussing Priti Patel in the last video, I deliberately gave poll choices of Tory twats that I knew I could have a bit more of a laugh talking about this week. And I was pleased to see Jezza Hunt win the poll, because he is an absolutely ridiculous character, and I'll show you and tell you why after this. Hey, sorry to interrupt, just a quick interjection. The best way to help the channel and beat the algorithms is to hit the like button, leave a comment when we're done, and subscribe if you haven't already. If you really want to help the channel, then hit the join button below or make a donation through PayPal or buy me a coffee. The links are in the description box. It's all very much appreciated indeed. Thank you. Mr. Cunt was the longest serving Secretary of State for Health in history, doing the job from 2012 to 2018. Longevity certainly doesn't necessarily lead to competency though, and he oversaw the biggest rise in waiting times that we've ever seen. He also tried to force basically unworkable plans for a 7-day week onto GPs and junior doctors who he'd already refused a pay rise to, leading to the UK seeing repeated, continual and still continuing now, strikes that damage faith in the system and increase waiting times further. Of course, this is all everybody else's fault. It's not Jeremy's fault. It's Labour's fault, or fat people's fault, or old people blocking beds. Sometimes it's their fault, yeah. It's not Jeremy's fault. Obviously, he's a Tory. They're not to blame for anything, are they? So, how good a health secretary was Mr. Hunt? Well, I think these charts say it all, really. This one is waiting lists since 2010. Note that the pandemic actually brought the figures down for a few months. It wasn't the cause of it, as the bullshitters in the Tory party like to say, usually completely unchallenged by the media. As you can see, both the amount of people on waiting lists and A&E waiting times rose exponentially before the pandemic and then skyrocketed after the dishonest farce of Ballbag Johnson's tenure. It's not Jeremy's fault though. I think Tiny Rishi has got quite a lot of confidence in Jeremy, quite a lot of faith in his Chancellor, the head boy of Charterhouse, and he really expected him to pull a right-wing blinder and turn the polls around with a spectacular and well-delivered budget. I'd imagine he hoped Mr. Cunt would be able to be smart and devious enough to deceive the public into thinking that the budget was something that was working in their interests while delivering massive tax cuts to his rich mates. I don't think Jeremy quite got the brief though. His budget failed to deliver the positive change or hope that people need across Britain. After 14 years of Tory failure, taxes remain at a 70-year high, mortgages are climbing or utterly unattainable, and there was nothing to help with the cost of living in it whatsoever. Nothing meaningful anyway. Jeremy is quite an eloquent cunt though, and he did manage to make it sound like he was doing something useful here and there. Unfortunately, under any kind of examination, the details crumble quite quickly, such as 3.4 billion extra spending on the NHS. He didn't mention the report that states after 14 years of Tory neglect, the NHS has got over £10 billion worth of maintenance issues alone, and that's before you address staff issues or even look at the waiting lists. Found 3.4 billion for them now. Really, the whole budget can be summed up as utterly useless anyway. Most of the announcements depended on things that they're saying are going to happen in 2025 or 2029, when we know for a fact they'll be long gone, hopefully forever. The budget, the whole thing, was utterly useless and meaningless. Quite fitting, really. I think we'll move on from those two displays of miserable incompetence with something a bit more light-hearted. Did you know Jeremy Hunt speaks fluent Japanese? I didn't, and I find that quite impressive, to be honest. The British aren't known for their multilingual skills, even posh ones like him that went to private schools, and those that do speak other languages usually choose European languages such as German or French. It was while working in Japan as an English teacher that Mr. Hunt met his future wife, though she's Chinese, not Japanese. Upon his return from the land of the rising sun, Mr. Hunt tried to create an empire exporting marmalade to Japan. See, this is the kind of thing that you can take a chance on if you're already incredibly wealthy and you've just got no fear of failure because of how well connected you are, innit? You won't be surprised to learn that Jeremy's marmalade empire stalled quite quickly. I'm not sure how many Japanese people have a hankering for expensive artisan marmalade on toasted ciabatta for breakfast, but apparently it's not enough to support a Japanese marmalade empire. When he ran for the leadership campaign in 2019, during the time he was inexplicably the Foreign Secretary for a while, he described his wife Lucia as a great diplomatic weapon. I think he's a grade A weapon of a totally different kind, as he proved when he forgot which country his wife is actually from at a conference in China, where he told the Chinese Foreign Secretary that she was Japanese. He managed to correct himself before going too far. I mean, he probably realised that the Chinese would find it quite offensive, but it was all a bit late by then. He later tweeted, "As a new Foreign Secretary, when reflecting in English with the Chinese on a conversation you had with them in Japanese about your Chinese wife, don't get any of those mixed up. Apologies to the long-suffering Mrs. H." Long-suffering indeed. Do you think we can forgive him for that one? I think it's more dumbass bellend territory than outright Tory twat, to be fair. But we're about to have a look at his voting record though, so I'm sure any sympathy you have for him will be short-lived. Let's just do this in a slightly different way than usual. Jeremy Hunt has been a Tory cunt for many years, so he has an extensive voting record. Let's just rattle off the ones that I find particularly offensive, and you can let me know if you agree or if there's any you find particularly offensive in the comments. Jeremy has voted 19 times for stricter enforcement of immigration laws and 22 times to make the asylum system harsher. He's voted twice to allow mass surveillance of people's online communications. He's voted 12 times to reduce the amount of benefits disabled people get and 4 times for the bedroom tax. He's voted 28 times to reduce benefits overall for anyone unemployed, disabled or whatever, and 9 times for landlords to not have to pay for their properties to be brought up to decent living standards in the wake of the Grenfell tragedy. And yes, he's a landlord. He's voted twice against measures to curtail tax avoidance and 9 times against UK integration with the EU. He's voted 5 times against ordinary people having access to legal aid and consistently voted for people to have to show ID at the polling station. He voted against reducing the voting age and 5 times against laws to promote equality and human rights. He's never voted against anything about LGBT rights though, or same-sex marriage, so he's alright with the gays. Maybe he's thinking back to being head boy at Charterhouse. I'm just going to have to show you something rather than explain it for this last section. I'm clearly not the only person who thinks Mr. Cunt is a pompous dickhead. The TV show The Last Leg have long since noticed how ostentatious, buffoonish and pretentious he is. And they did this.
So this morning we found out where Jeremy Hunt was meeting his constituents and sent along a sousaphone player and a camera. Here's genuinely what happened.
That really is a thing of beauty, that clip, isn't it? Maybe we should start a GoFundMe or something to pay for a saxophone player to continually follow every Tory MP all the time during the election campaign. Do you think that'd be election interference? I think it probably would. Maybe Labour should put it in the first budget though. A saxophone player to follow every Tory MP that's left afterwards, just to warn people that they're around still. That'd be money well spent, definitely. Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. I've got to admit, I struggled a little bit with this one. Jeremy Hunt is a pompous, daft twat, but he's not in the same league as Braverman for disgusting outbursts or Johnson for utter dishonesty. Still a Tory though. If all the Tories were as good at public appearance and a bit less of a twat in the way that Jeremy Hunt is, that horrible soul-destroying result in the 2019 general election, which predicted the Tories would be in power for another decade, would have seemed a bit more realistic. Thank God they're not all as decent as him. Mind you, he's not decent either, really, is he? He's like the sweet corn in a big pile of Tory shite. He's still recognisable, and technically he's still got a bit of, a little bit of integrity, but he's surrounded by shit. Yeah. Anyway, please comment if you've got an opinion on Jeremy Hunt, and let me know if there's anything he did during his time as Health Secretary or Foreign Secretary or Chancellor of the Exchequer that you find particularly disgusting. I'm sure there will be. Please hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to support the channel a bit further, there is a link for PayPal, Patreon or the Buy Me a Coffee page in the descriptions box below. Jeremy Hunt's voting record is down there too, and of course there is the join button for memberships. Jeremy may well keep his seat in the general election, but he'll be one of very few that do, and current polling suggests that even he might lose his seat. His tenure as NHS Secretary, Foreign Secretary and now Chancellor of the Exchequer has been an utterly disappointing series of failures, as we could have predicted. He won't be standing in any way of our countdown to power. The pompous, buffoonish, lying cunt Jeremy Hunt became MP for West Surrey in 2000. Okay, off. Bell end.